Guess I'll do something good today.
Hey y'all, welcome to Dad Does Dinner. I'm Chase, and today we're going to be working on some reverse seared pork chops. Now I know that you watched my reverse seared steak episode, and basically the reverse seared pork chops, we're going to use all the same methods that we did with the steaks, including starting out with a mirepoix. And right now I just cut up a carrot, I'm cutting up some celery, and cutting up an onion, some garlic, and some rosemary. And I'm putting these in my roasting pan, and they are going to sit underneath the pork chops, which are going to go into an oven that's between 225 250 degrees. My oven, it doesn't cook quite as steadily as I like. I got it on the lowest temperature possible on the setting, and it's going to end up right at 225, 250. So what the mirepoix does is that's some aromatics that I'm throwing in to my pan, and as those pork chops slowly roast, we get those aromas that are created from these, and it really adds a nice extra flavor to the pork chops. Now the pork chops that I'm using today, they are just regular old HEB pork chops, nothing special about them. However, I was able to find some that are cut, between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches thick. Remember, with a reverse sear, thicker is better. Somewhere between 1.5 inches and 2 inches would be best. Those are gonna work just fine though. What I did with those pork chops, I've got 4 pork chops, each one of them are about 12 ounces. And so each pork chop got salt and sugar on them. So I've got a little less than a teaspoon of kosher salt and a little less than half a teaspoon of coconut sugar that I put on these. I let these sit overnight in the refrigerator, doing the dry brine technique. And remember, that dry brine technique works to get your meat seasoned all the way through. Now the salt, it works real well with the meat to help create that enzymic reaction. Put it on the meat, moisture comes up, mix it with that salt, the salt starts to dissolve and really goes all through the meat. Sugar has the same effect. Sugar usually takes a little bit longer to get all the way into the meat, even 2 to 3 days on sugar. However, it does look like all the sugar did dissolve, so it's probably just hanging out just under the surface. And anyway, so it'll give our pork chop just a little bit of sweet and some good salty seasoning, okay? So I've got this on a baker's rack sitting over my mirepoix, and I've got an internal probe plugged into one of the pork chops. So I've got this in. I'm going to cook these. I think it's going to take 45 minutes to an hour to get these to an internal temperature of about 120 degrees, and then we're going to sear them off in the cast iron skillet. So now I'm going to put these in the oven. So while that pork is in there roasting, I'm going to go ahead and get some cauliflower ready to go. We're going to do some roasted cauliflower as well. If you're not roasting your vegetables, give it a try. It's a really easy way to bring some really good flavor to vegetables. So we do lots of vegetable roasting. We do cauliflower, we do broccoli, green beans, asparagus. Though as I've aged, I don't know why, but I've kind of lost my taste for asparagus. Don't like it as much as I used to, but I'll still eat it. I'll pretty much eat anything. So right now I'm just getting this cauliflower cleaned up, getting all the greens off of it. And then I'm going to slice it in kind of a cauliflower steak. Now some of this is going to break apart a little bit, but I just take it and just slice it and try to get it, about 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch slices. And this cooks real well. This is all, you can also grill cauliflower like this. So if you can get it kind of thick and for it to hold a steak like that, throw some olive oil, salt, and pepper on it, throw it on the grill. Really good way to eat cauliflower. So speaking of me eating just about everything, I was at my orthopedist's office the other day, and I'm definitely heading towards another knee replacement. This one in my right knee, and it's just up to me to decide when it's going to happen. But he said, well, how are things going for you? And I said, well, the coronavirus has made my belly swell. And he said, oh, you've got the COVID-15. I thought that was pretty funny. My orthopedist, he's really smart and he's really witty, and we get along very well. So the cauliflower is going on to a sheet pan. I know white is terrible on my video and you can't really see anything that's going. What's happening? There we go. So I got it on a sheet pan, and I line that with parchment paper. The parchment paper is not really necessary. It helps a little bit with cleanup. Foil also works real well. So onto a sheet pan. We're going to drizzle this with olive oil, hit it with some salt, and that's going to go in a 400-degree oven for 20 to 30 minutes, just until it starts to turn brown. Once my pork chops are done, we're going to crank up the heat on the oven, and this will go in. So I just drizzle olive oil all over this, and then I'm going to hit it with a good bit of sea salt. Nicely flavored, so let's see if you can see it without me dumping this pan. So that's what we look like. So well salted. I'm just gonna roll this around a little bit, try to get that olive oil on all pieces, all sides. That's gonna help with a little bit of browning that happens in the oven. And boom, that's done. Now I'm gonna get started on a simple garden salad. Before I forget, I got to give a shout out to the older Q brother, Kevin. Kevin watched the reverse sear episode on the steaks and kind of talking about steaks and eating steaks. That's kind of our thing. And he got his feelings hurt when I didn't give him a shout out on that episode. And he's kind of a big guy with a checkered past, and I really don't want him on my bad side. So, Kevin, big shout out to you, buddy. Then of course, Mike, my buddy Mike, he's kind of my inspiration behind the reverse sear. Mike and I have decided that our next battle is going to be battle pasta. It was a suggestion by my friend Nancy. We both like that idea. I really like that idea because I can just kind of stay here in the kitchen, don't have to run all around between outside grilling and doing all that stuff. Although Mike did suggest the other day that we follow that up with maybe a battle Greek food, or Greek food versus Egyptian food. And if we do that, then I'm going to have to up my technology game, and because that's going to be an outside and an inside cook. So hopefully that'll be coming your way soon. I know we both got a little busy as things going on. Was chatting with the Q brothers this morning, and the Q brothers are big guys. And, my doctor did diagnose me with the COVID-15. So we have decided to do a weight loss challenge. So the first one of us to lose 20 pounds will be the winner. Now, they kind of got an advantage of me because those guys are a lot bigger than I am. And when you're as big as they are, those first few pounds come off a lot faster. Anyway, I guess I've put on about 15 pounds during this coronavirus. I know a lot of it's just because I've been doing a lot of cooking and a lot of eating. And I know a lot of it's because of stress. Stress produces steroids in the body, and steroids cause us to gain weight. So I think, a combination of those two factors. And gosh, clothes are a little bit tighter than I want them to be. My joints are aching just a little bit more, and that's certainly no fun for me. Got bad news last week. Coronavirus shut down the pool. The pool is kind of my serenity haven during the summer. I always spend an hour or two a day down at the pool, just hanging out, getting sun, taking a dip, cooling off. And some of our I think some of our pool workers or some of the workers at the grill at the pool, maybe a couple of those were diagnosed with the coronavirus. So they seem to be doing okay, recovering just fine at home. And anyway, they shut down the pool, and then our grill and our restaurant in our neighborhood have both gone back to takeout only. So lots of coronavirus navigating. We're still pretty good here in Montgomery County, not like it is down in the Houston area. So we're doing okay. I got to see my colleague Emmy's happy face today as we had a Zoom interview meeting for an adjunct in our live entertainment technology department. It's always a pleasure to see her smiling face. She is one of those people who almost has a perpetual smile, and when she's not smiling, you better just stay the hell out of her way. So shout out to Emmy, and of course Super Nate, the hacker husband who is sporting all kinds of flip-flops, because that's just how he rolls. And I always got to give a shout out to my buddy Mike down there at San Angelo, One Arm Brewing and Barbecue, the mini micro brewery with the all-you-can-eat endless sausage platter. So what I've been preparing here are some vegetables from my garden, as well as others from the HEB produce department. My garden is still putting out tomatoes, not quite as abundant as they were about a month ago, but we got a steady supply of them. My wife has taken some of those seeds and sprouted those, so I've actually planted another 10 tomato plants, so hopefully in about 6 weeks the abundance will be back. So I've got some garden tomatoes. These are a couple medium-sized tomatoes, and I tell you what kind they were, but I wasn't real good about putting my little labels in front of my plants. So the first big rain we had, I lost about half my labels. But so these are either Sunmasters or Better Boy tomatoes that I'm using. These cucumbers, also from the garden. Not getting quite as many as those, but still getting a few. Amanda's not big on the seeds on cucumbers, so I cut them into quarters. This was a small cucumber, like this, and then I just run my knife right here to get the seeds out. And then, I do kind of a medium dice on these. Anytime you're doing a salad, it's always to make your cuts in manageable sized bites, so I can get some, some lettuce, some cucumber, some tomato, all in the same bite. So we end up with, kind of a medium dice on that. I've really enjoyed my garden this summer. It's been a really good garden, pretty prolific. Lots of stuff coming out. Right now it's pepper time. My peppers are really producing a lot right now. We have cayenne, Tabasco, habanero, jalapeno, Anaheim, Cajun bell, and bell peppers. So those are all coming in. Peyton the other day, he grabbed the Tabasco pepper. He said, "How much you give me if I eat that?" I said, $1. He said, "Oh, I don't know if it's worth $1." I said, "Oh, sure it is." I thought he was just kidding around, so he decided to eat it. So I took a bite of it, big old chew on it, and then he swallowed it, and then he started going, and it was pretty hot, but I was impressed because, it didn't seem completely unmanageable, so good for him. He's developing a spicy palate. Of course, I like that. That gives me a spicy buddy to eat with. Now I'm doing some carrots. You can grate your carrots just with your cheese grater. That's a good way to do them. I'm doing these, fairly small. Cut the carrot into a manageable size like this, and then I'll cut this again. So into fours, cut your carrot into fours, and then just put a dice on those. Is good. I gotta say, I got into a little bit of a funk for a couple of weeks. I really think it was just simply corona fatigue. That combined with some health issues that some of my family members were having. So far that has gone well. One of my family members had a pretty big deal surgery. He's still in the hospital recovering from that, but things are looking pretty good. So we get news and updates on that every day. But it has been stressful for sure. So that combined with corona fatigue, and I got pretty much into a funk. Still reached out to all my guys. Still go to the outreach meetings, and that definitely kept my head above water. So that was all, good, very good. But you know what really got me out of that funk? And I'm sure by now you know what it is. For those 4 of you who continually watch each one of my episodes, I had the opportunity to personally help somebody. Had a new guy come in, and we've gotten together, we met, we talked on the phone, kind of working through some stuff that he's going through. And I told him just yesterday, I said, hey dude, I was in a bit of a funk now working with you, and I am pretty much out of it now. So that just goes to show you, reaching out, helping somebody else is a great way to help yourself. I'm also blessed that I'm a teacher, and even though I've been teaching online since March, I get to be in a unique position where I get to help people for a living. And my students are no different. They have gone through Corona madness just the same as I have. And students are students, and you get a mix of students. But for the most part, my class, on this online film appreciation class, people turn in stuff when they're supposed to, how they're supposed to, and all of that. But I have noticed this summer that I've had a lot more late assignments, and a lot more people asking, for help. And I get it. I've had students with the coronavirus in my class, in my online class, lots of healthcare, first responders, and you know what? I have extended them grace in every case, because things are different now. And the cool part about that is they haven't just responded with a thank you. They responded with like this paragraph long of just saying how they're so grateful that I understand, what they're going through. And, I'm helping them. It's helping me. I feel good. They can manage the class. And so that's been going on too. So, if you're not, lucky like I am, and part of an outreach group, or in a profession where you're able just to kind of naturally help others, look at some things that you can do. If you are the type right now who's okay getting out and about, certainly, go to the grocery store and get some pantry staples and drop it off at a local food bank. That's a great way to do it. Do you have some things in your closet that you hadn't worn for a while that are still good? Put those together and drop them off at a clothing donation box or a local shelter. Unfortunately, one of the byproducts of the coronavirus, and I know this because I'm good friends with an ex-police officer and a current constable in Montgomery County, and they talk about how the rise in suicide, the rise of family violence is happening because of all this stress in the house. So there are people out there needing help. So certainly a women's shelter could use some kind of donation if you're able to do that. So those are some things you can do. Now, if you don't want to get out of the house, I get it, I understand, and your pocketbook's not full because, like me, you've lost some overload pay or some side jobs, so you don't have the extra income that you're used to. You can always just pick up the phone and call somebody you hadn't called in a while, a sibling, a parent, an old friend. Reach out, and I promise you're going to feel good and they're going to feel good. But so don't sit there going, I can't leave my house. There's nothing I can do, because there's always something you can do. Or how about, if you are fortunate like I am and you're still employed, how about you send an email to your employer, your supervisor, saying, hey, thanks for your support during this time. All of that is helpful. All of that is doing good. And whew, folks, that's the only way we're going to get through the craziness of the coronavirus, the divisiveness that is in our country right now. The only way we're going to get through it is by coming together and helping each other out. And if you're not willing to do that, you're part of the problem. All right. enough of that. So I've got carrots, I've got celery, I've got cucumbers, got the garden tomatoes. I like onion in my salad. I like a red onion. Sometimes the onion flavor is a little strong in a salad, so I've started putting these green onions in, and I just chop the tops of the green onions and put them right into the salad. Gives you a nice mild onion flavor without overtaking the salad. I've also got some fresh basil growing. I'm adding that to the salad. I like adding herbs to the salad because it adds a distinct freshness and brightness, and it doesn't take much. A little bit goes a long way. This is 4 basil leaves, and I'm just gonna do kind of a light chiffonade of these. Cut them into little strips so they end up coming like this. So I turn the leaf sideways, cut them into little strips, and then that goes in 2. Pork chops are up to 100 degrees right now. The oven's kind of vacillating between 200 and 250 degrees. And they have been in 40 minutes at this point. So for the greens of my salad, I'm going with a baby sweet leaf blend. So this is just some young, different types of lettuce, some red lettuce, some green leaf lettuce, a little bit of spinach. I normally have blue cheese in this salad, but my wife is trying to go dairy-free for the next month or so to see how that affects her. So no blue cheese in this salad. I am going to add some roasted and salted pistachio nuts for some crunch. I get the kind that are already shelled, and then I just do a rough chop on these. And this adds that good roasted, nutty pistachio flavor throughout the salad. Walnuts, pecans, those are also in a lot of our salads that we do around here. So I almost always add nuts and some kind of dried fruit. I like apricots, I like cranberries. Some dried plums are pretty good in it too. And in this case, I'm doing some dried cherries. They're gonna go in. You know how I like the sweet and salty and sweet and savory combinations, and that's gonna do it for me there. A lot of times I will make my own croutons, but part of what I'm doing right now is I'm eliminating bread and any kind of processed carbohydrate for a little bit. So I'm gonna leave out the croutons. We'll do that some other time. And now I'm gonna put together just a simple salad dressing, a little balsamic vinaigrette. So this is my dressing jar, and I pour in some olive oil. And then however much olive oil I pour in, just depending on the size of my salad, I pour about that same amount of balsamic vinegar. I've looked up a lot of different dressing recipes, and a lot of times it's like 3 parts of one to 1 part of the other, and I tried that and I just don't like the balance. I like a 1-to-1 ratio. And then to that, like a little sweet, so we add about a tablespoon of honey, salt, pepper, and the juice of half a lemon. The lemon's certainly optional. Sometimes I'll do lemon, sometimes I'll do lime, and sometimes I won't do any citrus at all. Citrus brings a brightness and freshness. Add it or don't. If you've never done this before, use the vinegar, the oil, and the honey. Give it a good shake. Just give it a little taste. I think you'd use just a little bit more oil. When I added that lemon juice, it added more acid to it. And so this oil helps balance that acid. And then a touch more honey. So if you're looking for a recipe on this, okay, just start with 1-to-1 vinegar and oil. Add sweetness, whether that's honey, some coconut sugar, regular sugar. I've even done maple syrup. Mix that up, see what you like, and just adjust it, okay? Play with that and put in flavors that you like. For my oil, for my fat in it sometimes, I'll use bacon drippings and make a bacon vinaigrette. That's really good. So I use that, or I use olive oil. Avocado oil also works too. I like the flavor of olive oil. Avocado oil is a really neutral oil and doesn't have a whole lot of flavor to it. I've decided I'm going to do a pan sauce with the pork chops, and this is something I haven't tried before. So it may turn out not good at all, but heck, you never know until you try. But I know that, you know, applesauce and pork chops, they go together real well. So I think I'm gonna do this kind of apple gravy. So I've got 2 medium-sized apples that I've chopped up, and I'm gonna put them in my mini food processor. I know you can't see it, but this is my mini food processor. If you don't have one of these, they are really great. They are inexpensive. I mean, we're talking, you know, $20 inexpensive. Get a cheap one, and it's great for all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna puree these apples with some chicken stock. So it's kind of a riff on applesauce, kind of a riff on a little pan sauce or pan gravy. To my 2 apples, I'm gonna add a 1/2 cup of chicken stock. And once I get this going in the pan, I probably am gonna add some more chicken stock, but this is kind of just to get this all emulsified together, and we'll see how it turns out. Chicken and apple is also a good combination, so this will give us a start to a pan sauce that I'll do after I sear off the pork chops. Those of you who follow my Facebook page, which if you aren't following the Dad Does Dinner Facebook page, why not? You may remember the other day I posted next on Dad Does Dinner chicken and waffles. Well, I did the chicken and waffles, and I mean, this took a long time. 3.5 hours of breading and frying and doing, you know, just getting all these chicken and waffles ready, did the waffles, everything from scratch, and they came out and they were just okay. I'm like, yeah, this is okay, but I don't know, I'd be better off getting some Eggos and some Popeyes. So anyway, I don't want to share a recipe that I just thought was okay. And you know, for me, you know, fried chicken, it's kind of one of those things that I'm better off just going out and buying it, letting the pros handle it. So, like I said, it turned out okay. But when I make something and I show it to you, I really want it to be great, and at the very least, I want it to be good. Same thing kind of happened with Mexican polenta pie. Now, I've done the Mexican polenta pie before. This time I used, instead of the tube polenta that you can buy already done, I made my own polenta on the stove. And everything tasted good, but it didn't quite all have the consistency that I wanted to do it. So I got to tweak it doing it with the fresh polenta. So that's why you didn't see that episode either. Another thing that you can do that's good for somebody else, that's somebody else being me, make sure that you've liked my videos, subscribed on YouTube, offer some comments on what you think. Emmy's great about doing that. She always gives me her feedback. Now, I didn't get any feedback from her from the zucchini episode, so maybe they're just not big zucchini fans in that house, or maybe Super Nate's just not talking to me anymore. I don't know. It's been about 1 hour and 10 minutes, a little bit less. Oven temperature, I had it set at 200, which on my oven means it's gonna fluctuate between about 215 and 240. That's about the range that I hit. If you're not sure or didn't know that that's what happens in your oven, pop an internal thermometer inside your oven and see what's happening when you turn it on, to make sure that you don't have any surprises with what you're cooking. So these are going to come out. I'm going to crank this heat up to 400. The cauliflower is going to go in. Roasted vegetables, you always want high heat, so when they just start to turn brown, they're going to be done, and you'll thank yourself for roasting your vegetables. That's what the pork chops look like after that time in the oven. It smells really great. They're not much to look at right now. The next thing that happens to them is a sear. I'm going to hold off on searing them until the cauliflower is just about done. There's a misconception in this country that pork needs to be cooked thoroughly in order for it to be safe to eat. You know, that happened a long, long time ago when we were worried about parasites, particularly trichinosis. But the way pigs are bred and raised today, we don't have to cook it to death. It's taken me a while to convince my wife of that. I like my pork chops just above medium rare, so about 135. She likes hers medium well to well done. So I brought these to 120 degrees. So now, right now, they're sitting right there at just rare. And so when we sear them up, it's going to bring that temperature, and it's going to bring them to probably about 135, right in the 135, 140 range, and a nice medium range that we both can live with. I've got a cast iron pan for searing. If you don't have a cast iron pan, stainless steel will work too. Doesn't brown quite as well as cast iron, but certainly well enough. In my pan, I've got about 3 tablespoons of peanut oil. Peanut oil has a high smoke point of around 425 degrees, and you want an oil with a high smoke point on it. Canola oil also will work. I'm not a big fan of canola oil because canola oil is highly processed, and we know that the more processed something is, the worse it is for you. So we're going with the peanut oil. You may remember on the reverse sear steaks when I did them in the cast iron skillet, made a whole bunch of smoke, set off a smoke alarm. Turn on your exhaust fan. I'm not going to do that because it's really loud. So I'm going to leave that off. I have opened the door a little bit, so hopefully when these start smoking a whole bunch, they're not going to set off the smoke alarms, but we'll see. So I use my my infrared thermometer. It's got a trigger on it and a screen readout. I want my oil to be, right around the 425 to 450 degree mark. We're getting real close to that. The oil's starting to shimmer. It's going to just start to smoke, and I'm able to put 2 pork chops at a time in the pan. We're going to do these on for a minute on each side. My oil's just starting to smoke, so I know it's ready. So I'm going to add the pork chops to it. Do this carefully. Probably a good idea to employ the use of a splatter screen. Save you a little cleanup later. So it's been a minute. I'm going to check these. Oh, look at that. I got to do this fast. Look at that. Nice and golden brown and delicious looking. So another minute on that side. So it's been another minute. Look how good that looks. I'm going to go ahead and pull one of these out while I work on the sides of the other one. And for this, just hold the sides down. So about 20 seconds, I'm going to roll it a little bit. Just trying to render it. It's got a nice little fat cap on that edge, and I just want to render that. Getting pretty smoky in here, so I went ahead and turned the fan on. But here's what it looks like. I mean, just a beautiful looking pork chop. Now we'll do it again with the other 2. You should rest these for about 10 minutes. Usually with meat in the stick, we want about a 30-minute rest to make sure all those juices get back into those meat fibers, but that's the beauty of the reverse sear, much less shorter resting time. Just finishing up this last one, I did check the internal temperature of these, and it got up to right at 140 degrees, so these are a really nice medium. Now we can start on my pan sauce. So I poured out a good bit of the oil that was in the pan, the oil and the fat, so now we've got about a tablespoon and a half of oil left in. And so so that's the rendering from the pork chops, so that good pork fat, as well as a little bit of our peanut oil. So to that, I'm gonna add about a tablespoon and a half of flour. And so a good pan sauce or gravy, it kind of starts as a roux. And the roux is equal parts flour and fat, and I just want to cook that flour taste out of it and pick up any of the little brown bits that might be stuck on the bottom of the pan. So my skillet was still hot, so I had the heat turned off, and now I'm going to bring that up to a low temperature. Looks like I need just a little bit more flour. You want this to be about the thickness of a thin paste. Now to this, I'm going to add our apple and chicken stock mixture. I want this to cook a little bit because I want those apples to cook. I'm going to go ahead and give it a taste now just to see if I'm on the right track. Definitely taste the apple, and you taste that pork fat. So I'm going to add, about a half teaspoon of salt. And this is one of those things that I'm just going to keep adding and tasting as I go. A bit of black pepper for the taste. That's actually really good. So that salt gave me a nice mix of salty and sweet, but the savoriness of the chicken stock. So I'm gonna keep stirring and just keep kind of cooking this down until that apple really breaks down. The cauliflower is just about done. It's starting to brown a little bit. Now this is really starting to thicken up, kind of like I thought it would, so I'm going to add some more chicken stock. Right, the cauliflower is done. You see that on the bottom of the cauliflower, the part that gets the pan, we get that nice caramelization, a little bit of caramelization on the other side. If you like a lot of caramelization, then turn that cauliflower halfway through cooking, and that took right at 30 minutes. Give our applesauce gravy another taste. I am pretty pleased with that. So it feels like a pretty good experiment. Now I'm just gonna finish this with about a teaspoon of maple syrup, a little sweetness. I just got the news that Peyton's starving, so we are just about ready to plate this up. If you're cooking with maple syrup, I strongly recommend that you use real maple syrup and not the flavored maple syrup. That is dynamite. Hint of that chicken, a hint of the pork, good apple flavor, a little salty, and then a nice sweetness from that maple that comes right in. So this is done. So we are ready to plate this up and give it a try. So I have high hopes for this, given the success of the reverse seared steak. We'll see if the pork is just as good. So I got a little of the applesauce gravy on. Gonna give that a cut. Take a look at it, see it's done throughout, okay? Wow. That is so good. You know, once again, we do that dry brine. And one of my complaints about thick pork chops like this is they never have enough seasoning. Well, if you dry brine it like I did with the salt and the sugar, you're gonna have enough seasoning. And then that little applesauce gravy with that sweet and savory going on really highlights the pork. So, you know, Mike was right again. The reverse seared pork chop, that's a winner. Now the cauliflower, I mean, if you like cauliflower, this brings out all the regular flavors of cauliflower, just a little bit of salt, a little bit of oil. And roasting it like that also makes it a little bit sweeter because you have the roasting process that kind of brings out the sugar, caramelizes them, and very tasty. And then of course we got our fresh summer salad. I just added the balsamic vinaigrette that we made, gave it a toss. And this is, it's the perfect complement to all of this. And we have that good freshness to go along with our savory and meaty dinner. Very pleased with this. Real happy with this result. Something I'll definitely be doing again. So I encourage you, give your meat a reverse sear try and you'll enjoy it as much as I do. We'll see y'all next time.
I think this is the best pork chop we've ever had in this house.
Well, let's all do something